If you keep creating crap content, you are crap. There's maybe 800 people in the world who have any interest, from universities to pharmaceutical companies to testing companies. And there just aren't many people who really want to buy. They're called knockout rap. Was, depending on the study, a 6 to 20% growth month over month in traditional organic search, while there's been about a 300% increase in AI search. Every page you create on the internet, every word you write on the internet costs Google money, costs Bing money, costs ChatGPT money. And the reason why it costs money is because...
Chris Westmeyer, welcome to eCoffee with Experts.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin.
You're very welcome. World is a crazy place right now, man. And you guys are dealing with quite a few clients. You have a relatively, depending on what you call large, but a 25 person-ish team at Digital Strike. Clients are reacting to the political environment, the economic environment in all kinds of ways. What are you seeing from your clients, and how are you helping them navigate the world right now?
That's a great question. We're seeing a lot of pullback. We're seeing a lot of uneasiness with tariffs. So on our clients who are maybe trucking clients or e-commerce clients, retail, there's a lot of concern on tariffs and what's changing and what inventory they'll have and what's going to be available. And they're concerned of what to advertise. But then almost on the flip side, we have higher education. And if you know much about higher education, most universities, foreign students pay 100% tuition. US students usually pay a fraction of that. So if the group of students that is paying a majority of the money to fund the programs, to fund the school, are suddenly gone, everything kind of goes into chaos. And so understanding where visas are available, understanding where to target your audience, it's a lot of pivoting really fast based on no real direction from the government at this point.
And you were telling me about some wisdom that was imparted onto you when you worked at a creative agency. I thought that was really relevant. Yeah, walk us through what lesson you learned the last time the world kind of was in a downward spiral.
So I worked at a creative agency. I ran all the sales and development. And I remember it was a small agency and we sometimes struggled month to month. It was a tough go. But what I remember the owner doing when things got really tough, I thought for sure, we're going to take pay cuts. We're going to have issues. Benefits are going to be gone. And the weirdest thing happened. That owner started hiring people. And my instant reaction was to come from a source of scarcity and batten down the hatches and cut all the corners and shut everything down and turn off the bathroom light when you leave to save money. But in reality, he was much smarter than I ever knew. And he tried to impart that wisdom on me in that time when I was scared to death. He said, now is not the time to pull back. Now is not the time to fall back with everyone else. It's to push forward. So we hired new people. We bought new technology. We prepped for the future, even at the risk that that future may not be there. And it allowed us, for lack of a better term, to come out from behind other agencies and pull around them. And when things got better, we were in a much better position to capitalize on all the opportunities. We had the team, the staff, the synergy. We were like a rocket ship when we came out of that, but most of the people weren't. And so his foresight showed me that, if you're in a race and your cars are there racing, you're constantly drafting behind another competitor and you're always frustrated with this competitor, times like these are the one and only times where you get to pull out and maybe take over if you capitalize when everyone pulls back and you don't. So Digital Strike is not pulling back, even with some of our clients pulling back. We have made some new hires, some strategic investments. We're growing a lot slower than normal, but we're growing and we're investing heavily in the future. We know it'll be okay. It's just going to be a bumpy road. But the cool part is we're going to end up on the other side in a much better position than we are today.
Yeah, I love that approach. It's kind of like the stock market. When it dips, everybody tries to pull out, but then you can scoop up a whole bunch of shares at a discounted rate, right?
Yeah. If you time it right. The cool thing is this doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to time it. It happens once a decade,
Yeah.
And so this is your one chance. The stock market, at least you've got weekly opportunities to jump in and out.
Yeah, but this too shall pass, I think is the
Just yeah.
yeah, that's one of the lessons. What channels or strategies are you basically what are you bullish on even in the market and the economy dipping right now and everything that's going on? What are you still pushing forward on and even doubling down on?
I would have to say what we're doubling down on, where we think we're going to end up on the plus side on this, and we're already seeing bits of it,
Mhm.
is on the organic search side. So
Okay.
people are concerned about SEO being dead and the 10 links not being there anymore
Mhm.
and what happens to the traffic. It is amazing what actually happens is it's okay if the customer journey happens within a ChatGPT or a Perplexity or a Google Gemini or an AI overview. What matters is, do you get to have your own billboard there? Are you a citation? Are you a reference? Are you something, even if you don't get clicked?
Mhm.
So, generally, what we're seeing is actually incremental gains in impressions. And we just got done doing a study and we took a lot of other studies and then overlaid it with our data just to kind of see if it was right. And what we were seeing was, depending on the study, a 6 to 20% growth month over month in traditional organic search, while there's been about a 300% increase in AI search. So,
Hmm.
you would assume that with all the AI search, I think Spark Toro Rand over there said 1 in 8 queries in a ChatGPT is actually more like a traditional search. It's not
Hmm.
write me a poem or write me a song. And so if you model that out based on how many users they have, how many queries they have, and you break it across all of them, it starts growing rapidly, even though it's still just a fraction of the search market. But what's
Mhm.
happening is it's not pulling away from traditional search activities. It's adding to it while traditional is still going up. So it seems like people are using things more. And ultimately, that gives you more opportunities to be part of that conversation, to appear in those search results, to appear as a trusted source. And yes, you will get some clicks from it. But the trick is make sure your visibility is there. Your traffic may go down a little bit for blog content, informational content, but ultimately, if your engagements drop or if your brand search queries drop, that's where the problem is. So, what we
Hmm.
would see is someone would search for something, a brand would appear. Someone would search for something else, a brand would appear. Something would
Mhm.
search, boom, boom, boom. And then eventually, that would trigger a branded search in Google and they would go to the website and convert.
Mhm.
So there was an uptick in a lot of branded searches as people were seeing, HubSpot over and over and over again, or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And that's what we see even in the smaller clients. So ultimately, if you're losing leads from organic search, there is a problem because there aren't less opportunities. It's
Mhm.
just they're going somewhere else, apparently, not you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed that in my own experience, if I'm searching something for chat and it's giving me references, like searching the web, yeah, I tend to notice if I see something multiple times, I'm more likely to click on the source for where they got that. Yeah. And I've also been seeing that LLMs are giving more weight to like even these pay to play kind of like listing sites, top 10, best 10, whatever. Are you approaching those types of publications and playing the game, or are you finding kind of a workaround? Or, I guess, in a simpler term, like, how are you getting visibility on LLMs?
So the answer is both and all.
Yep.
So what happens is if you write your content, and you'll see this on a lot of brands where it'll be what are the top podcasts for marketing. A marketing podcast website that wants to promote itself will say these are the top ones. They're first and then 9 other ones. That listicle becomes a listicle that they use as a reference. And by the way, you were number one on that list, so you must be really good.
Right.
So you can actually be your own listing source, which is amazing if you do it correctly, respectfully,
Hmm.
and honorably when you're laying out the comparing and contrasting of competitors, things like that. But there are plenty of lists that you need to join. There's like for digital marketing agencies, I never cared for clutch.co. I did not care for that directory, but it shows up everywhere. So we had to get a listing and we had to pay a little bit for it. And we don't get a ton of leads from it, but it
Hmm.
appears all the time and has the Digital Strike name there as,
Yeah.
things when our page. So just being cited through that is worth it. When you say the pay for play on the other side, We have a lot of fiber internet companies. And
Hmm.
when there's companies like Broadband Now or highspeedinternet.com, and they're just top 10 listicles, and they all pay for those and they pay an affiliate commission for them. And they dominate the world of when you look for internet or ISP service in your area. The trick is if you join some affiliate networks, you
Hmm.
get to be on the list. So we're recommending to some of our clients where it makes sense, go ahead and join. You don't always have to pay. Just try to even get in on the free side or the
Hmm.
minimal or offer the smallest commission so that you don't really have to pay much out and they'll put other people ahead of you, but you will be there all the time.
Hmm.
So yes, we're playing the game. Yes, it's the craziest things. Directories were dead once search engines started. Oh wow, directories are important again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this weird world where what's old is new again.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like with the stock market analogy, like everything comes in cycles, and this too shall pass. Like, that this pay to play type of thing, maybe not as seen as black hat, but it's definitely a little bit further out of the right down the middle integrity play. But man, if it's working, I mean, it might be a short term gain.
It's tough. I've been in digital marketing for a long time. And so when I started, Google was not the predominant search engine. There was AltaVista, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, Northern Light, Excite, WiseNut, Tioma. There were all these engines competing, and Google came along and changed the world. But there were a good 5 to 20, even Dogpile, which was just an aggregator
Mm,
of multiple ones, Meta search engine. There were tons and tons of engines, and everyone was duking it out, trying to find their spot. And then Google came in with a new algorithm and basically just changed the whole world, blew it up, and everything had to start over. I feel like I've been doing this so long that this feels like that time
wow.
with all these players and everyone jumping in and everyone trying to be part of it. And we're going to end up with 2 to 4 real players at the end of the day.
Mm,
So it is crazy, and there are ways to game the system. But if you look and study anything, a lot of these crawlers use something, these large language models use something called a RAG, which is it's a retrieval technique to get new information because LLMs have a close date. So they stop collecting data on a certain date so they can analyze it, test it to make sure it doesn't hallucinate, and then they release it 3 to 6 months later, but it doesn't have the new Cardinal score in it. It doesn't
mm,
have who's playing at XYZ amphitheater next week. It doesn't have any current data. So
mhm.
it retrieves it with search engines and then supplements it. So traditionally, ChatGPT has used Bing. Or Gemini has used Google. Ironically enough, Claude uses Brave's search engine, which most people have never even heard of.
Yeah,
It's actually not bad.
good deal.
It's kind of interesting. But what we found is that Bing isn't returning enough stuff for ChatGPT and it's not going direct to Google. But there's a company called SERP API that grabs Google data and it's pulling from that and pulling Google data into ChatGPT. So at the end of the day,
Hmm.
all things being considered, all roads, every road is actually leading back down to Google's database
Man.
and their crawlers and the way they do it. And it's so much more advanced. I'm sorry, I'm going on, but if you saw the recent analysis, Google spit up some data because there were some issues. I think it takes 2 drops of water or 2 milliliters of water to cool down their AI query engine. And at one time, it took 16 to 32 ounces per 100 words on
Wow.
ChatGPT. So the amount of fresh water needed, my point is, whether it's a little off or not, and it's probably getting smarter and better, is
Mhm.
Google has refined it down to a science. Minimal electricity, minimum heat, minimum everything. ChatGPT is just like a bloated pig running around using up all the resources while it has free cash. And that cannot stay that way. So Google has a massive advantage because they can keep building faster without
Mm.
having to use the resources that the newer players do. So at the end of the day, it's probably going to be Google's world again with everyone else kind of hovering around it.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, that the definition of AGI is anybody's game, right? But that's kind of where Microsoft and OpenAI have been like, on separate terms. But what happens after that partnership separates? Is there a play there? I don't know. I mean,
So it looks like Microsoft is developing a lot of their own versions of it. And if you look
hmm
at things like DeepSeek from China, which copied ChatGPT for all intents and purpose, they
hmm
did it for a fraction of the money and a fraction of the time. Grok came out of nowhere. These platforms, I mean, I hate to say it, aren't that hard to make anymore because you can just keep stealing from other platforms.
yeah,
And so it's like anyone can have an LLM at this point. So does Microsoft ultimately need ChatGPT? I don't think so. I think they own a crawler, they have a massive database, they have a search engine, and if they can steal all the technology and all the infrastructure, if that breaks apart somehow, I think they're in a better place. And the reason why I think that,
mm,
because ChatGPT is taking on so much debt, it is
yeah.
going to be overwhelming to catch up where Microsoft doesn't have that much. It's profitable.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And those, I mean, you talk to any smart entrepreneur, any wealthy person, they all say the same thing. They say, be frugal. I mean, even Warren Buffett like determines his McDonald's order based on what the market is doing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and I don't think ChatGPT is going away. Don't get me wrong. It's
yeah.
not going in. It's just not very efficient and it's not a good investment. And I think Microsoft and Google are going to come out the winners. Google, the big
Yeah.
winner, Microsoft, another winner, no matter what happens to ChatGPT or all the rest of this.
Yeah.
So
I
so
mean,
my bet, when you're asking me where we're betting, I'm doubling down on organic,
uh-huh.
especially Google being organic, because that is the machine that feeds all of this stuff above it, traditional, AI, everything. So I am not interested in moving away from intent-based interest. When
Yeah.
people are looking for something, I want to be there. I do disruptive. We run ads towards
Mhm.
targeted personas or remarketing, but when someone raises their hand and says, I'm interested in digital marketing. I would like to be part of that conversation as opposed to, hey, Austin, you need digital marketing because you're this age group, you're in this market, you've done these 5 things, you must need it. You may not, you may not, but
Mm.
that's a big assumption. Love, I would rather have the assumption that you've shown an interest. Maybe you can't afford me, maybe you're not interested in what we have, but at least the interest is there.
Mhm. And so when you're building out organic and it's all content, are you structuring sites? Are you building different sites? How are you approaching like top, middle, bottom of funnel content, knowing that, the attribution is going to change and clicks are not happening as much? I guess this is part one to a two-part question, but yeah, essentially, how is that thought process changing for content that you're developing based on where you're finding the user in their journey?
Probably won't like this answer. It's not very cool or sexy or interesting.
That's
It
probably the most
doesn't
effective.
it doesn't change much. And the
Okay.
reason why is because we still have all parts of that content. Some of it's going to appear as a citation in AI, and some of it's going to appear in traditional search or an ad or in a local business listing where they can just directly click on it. So my world doesn't change in terms of the 3 parts of it, because if we give up on the top part, we lose the visibility, even if we're not getting the traffic to get down here. What changes to me is how we provide the content. And so when we think of content, we have to think of it in the primitive terms of the AI crawlers, not the sophisticated terms of the search crawlers.
Mm,
And we have to think of everything as compartmentalized content instead of web page content, meaning
mm,
every paragraph on a page can be cited, pulled out from that page and cited as a source. But traditional, it's the whole page,
mhm,
all or nothing. So AI takes thoughts out of there, which means you have to have a starting point of your thought, the begin or middle and the end in one paragraph. The next
mm,
paragraph is your next thought and your next thought. You can't start out with the question, how many light bulbs does it take to do this? And then you tell a whole story. And then at the end, it says it's 17 light bulbs. AI doesn't make the connection. So it gets lost and it doesn't understand. So you have to have question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
mm,
So it's the structure of the content,
mhm.
which ironically actually works really well for users too.
Yeah, yeah.
When I hit something, I kind of want the answer to what I was
Mhm,
looking for. I don't, if I want to find the best place to get an oil change, I don't want to understand the history of few versus few or cold versus hot. I just want to know how much is the oil change and can I drive my car in now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In Google, they release their spam update, maybe kind of a reflection of an internal update. I don't know. Had heard something like that. But in the spam update, they were talking about different they're always going for the user experience and what they consider spam and not spam as kind of like a blanket statement. If I can, I would say if it benefits the user in a unique and efficient way, it's probably the way to go. And that's like the fundamentally, speaking with also some of other SEO leaders who are speaking on stages all around the world, that's basically what they're saying. Like, play by the rules. SEOs ruin everything, but not all SEOs. Is just the people who are trying to game the system. So, if you had a client and they have very minimal budget and let's say they're a decent brand, right? They've been around for 10 years. They have a good client base, but they're going through a tough time, kind of like we mentioned at the top of the conversation. As minimal budget as you can, what are you putting that into when it comes to search marketing?
So the things that we're putting it into are brand mentions, structured brand mentions within content. So that could
Okay.
be sponsorship of an event. It could be local business listings. It could be a real press release, not a made for SEO press release.
Mm-hmm.
There are things like that that you can do. You can host events, you can do things like that. But we also are still doing outreach and we're trying to build content that could potentially draw links in. And
Mm-hmm.
those links generally will come with anchor text that could be brand mentioned. So we can kind
Mm-hmm.
of get a good brand mention. Going back to the old days, let's say you're going to give away $1,000 scholarship for a student and you build a page about it. And what you do is you go out to all the universities and say, hey, would you mind linking to our scholarship for your students? So they'll link to it, put the name of whatever it is, your brand, link over to it. And you end up with a PR play when you give the $2,000 away that is fun, interesting. It brings the community in. It's something interesting to talk about. It makes you look good. And you get all these powerful links from these universities and schools. So for an investment of time and money, you can build the brand that way. Those links will stay there if you do the scholarship each year.
Mm.
And you can kind of grow that. So if you have limited budgets, you have to get really creative on the types of things and do a little bit of the legwork yourself. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is really making sure your content matters. Let's say it's your birthday and on your blog you write, "Hey, it's my birthday and I'm 35 years old and blah blah blah." I think that's really cool, but that doesn't really add anything to the internet. No one is searching for your birthday. There isn't that. So what are you putting out there that is really interesting? And what's really interesting and part of the spam update that you're seeing is this. You asking ChatGPT to write up some synopsis of some topic that you have, and then you're putting it out there is not incrementally adding to the value of the internet. It's regurgitating known facts into a
Mm-hmm.
different form. So if you step back, think about it this way as a business, just as a pure business.
Mm.
Every page you create on the internet, every word you write on the internet costs Google money, costs Bing money, costs ChatGPT money. And the reason why it costs money is because they have to spend the resources to have a crawler come out, understand what that is, grab parts of it, pull it in, either build a model from it or keep it in their database in a cached version. And then they have to go back out and make sure it's still there, make sure it hasn't changed, make sure it's up to date, make sure that there isn't something new. And that cost is electricity, storage, CPU processing power.
Mm.
Every page you add to the internet puts a burden on these crawlers.
Mm.
It may be fractions of a penny, but those fractions happen every month, every quarter, every year. And the more pages out there, the more cost they have. So some studies are showing 20 to 40% of the internet is all that's really crawled and indexed. The rest of it is crap. It's duplicate. It's regurgitated. It's AI generated. And by the way, AI generated does not mean crap.
Mm-hmm.
AI generated, completely automated without you doing anything or leading it, that is crap. You using AI to enhance something you've created, a thought process you've gone down, a unique value proposition, that can be new and interesting. But just because you hand me paints, I'm not Picasso.
Nice.
So it's just a tool. And if you use the tool to do everything, you are adding cost to the internet and not adding anything. So Google's stance is, how do we get rid of some of this generated, get it out of the way so we can focus our crawlers? Bing is trying to figure out how to get it out of the way. ChatGPT is, how do we just get to the stuff that matters? What's a trusted source? So at
Mm.
the end of the day, if you keep creating crap content, you are crap. You are.
You are what you create.
And the point of this is, it has to be cleaned up once in a while, and it
Yeah.
changes, and this goes under different guises and stuff. So Google builds these algorithms. ChatGPT has trusted sources, builds their own algorithms. They're constantly trying to filter to get to the good content, to build their models, to build their engines, to build their databases.
Mm.
And it's a challenge. It is a challenge. So when you say, what can you do? Quit writing blog posts for quantity. Don't write something just because you have this wonderful idea that you think you're going to run through ChatGPT, or you want to talk about something that's not new to the internet. Take a few minutes before you do it. And maybe instead of 4 blog posts a month, you do one really good one,
Mm. Mhm.
and it's the quality over quantity. It used to be quantity, throw everything out there, it'll get crawled and you'll randomly get some stuff and that'll be okay. We've moved beyond that now.
Mhm.
And now it comes down to, if you're going to spend the time and create value, you are going to be valuable.
Yeah. Chris, that's actually one of the best ways that I've heard it explained, which is to think about it from the business's perspective. Think about it from Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, whoever. Think about it from their perspective. And I think that's very valuable for agency owners to hear as well. And I'm sure there are nefarious agencies out there. I have the good fortune of not talking to very many of them. Most of them are high integrity and smart people like you. But I think as an agency owner, thinking about what makes business sense for the client is going to help them win, not just like, what can I do to play with the newest toy and appease the marketing director at the brand. But no, it's like, be a proper client, care about the metrics that the brand cares about, not just click through rate, but like actual sales, actual revenue, right? Audience growth, show ups to an event. And I think if you have that business perspective, from what it sounds like you're telling me, that is the easiest, cleanest way for me to see success.
You're speaking my love language. If you understand what the engines need, and you understand what the users need, and you understand what the business needs,
Mm.
you can run a really incredible campaign. But if you're just focused on this or just this and not the business or not the engines or not the people, you end up like every other agency. So
Hmm.
what we pride ourselves on is understanding all three. What are the business goals? Leads. What does the engine need? It needs fresh content, and why, how are you going to deal with this? And ultimately, if you look at it through everyone's lens, pull it back, you can come up with a really good strategy where it's a win, win, win. Everyone wins. It may take a little bit more effort, and it may take prep time, and it may take some strategy, but man, is it worth it?
And it may take really creative approaches like standing on top of a building. Chris, as we wrap up here, will you tell me about this really interesting client that you had who only has an audience of 800 people in the entire world, and how you built that audience? Because I was just keeled over dying laughing.
Sure. We have a kind of a genomics client, and they struggle. They struggle online. They have such a small audience. They want to do digital marketing because honestly, it's really just hard to find their audience. And they thought, anyone who's interested in what we have, we want to open the doors and bring them in. So what we decided, after having the privilege of working for 6 to 12 months and figuring out where their audience was we had to get creative. There is no place where all these people are, like, there's no targeting that we can hit. There's no location. There's nothing. That they actually put human livers in rats to test for pharmaceutical drugs ahead of time. And there's maybe 800 people in the world who have any interest, from universities to pharmaceutical companies to testing companies. And there just aren't many people who really want to buy. They're called knockout rat. And they're just not a big thing.
Mm.
And they're not a big player in this world. And so we had to get creative, and there's interesting data points, and a lot of people don't think like this. So we may be a digital marketing agency, but we're not just selling services. We're coming up with interesting solutions. So what we had to do is stop and think, sure, we can run ads to university people and stuff. It may or may not work, but how do we build a real audience? And what we did was we found a conference that was 2 or 3 years prior to this. And there is a technology where you can sit on any longitude and latitude and build a model around it. And you can essentially, most of them will go back about 5 years. You can extract all the mobile IDs out of that. The biggest problem that we had was, ironically, the first conference that we found was in the bottom of a hotel, and it goes top down. So every room all the way down plus the conference. So the data was so polluted, we just couldn't use it. So we actually had to find a conference where the ceiling of the conference building was the top of it, and we could sit right on it. And we grabbed some waiters, a UPS guy, a general manager for the conference floor. But generally, we got 400 to 600 of these people all in one spot at one time, extracted it out. Most of the mobile IDs had not changed in those 2 to 3 years. And now we had our audience, and we could start building from that by targeting them, reaching out to them, and kind of figuring out what they were interested in. So you have to get creative sometimes. And I'm a big proponent of intent-based marketing, but when there isn't that much intent, sometimes you just got to go hunt them down.
Man, that is an incredible approach and such a cool story. Like, talk about thinking outside of the box. And you told me that big brands, when they are dealing with their marketing departments or their agencies and they can't solve the problem, they come to Chris at Digital Strike.
They don't come to Chris, they come to Digital Strike. I just happen to be sitting here sometimes. The team is the genius. I've done it for years, but we've had the privilege to kind of build up a team who can solve these problems. So when really complicated issues come up, it could be a manufacturer of tools is going into Home Depot and they're doing a white labeled version for Lowe's, and they have to optimize two product feeds so they can both win but not be remotely associated. So you have no idea they're made by the same company.
Huh.
And there's so much nuance in how to do that, that we have the ability to pull that off. We have the ability to do things that most agencies don't do. And it's a blessing and a curse. It would be a blessing if that client wanted to stay with us forever and do stuff. The curse is sometimes we just get a big project and then they're moving on with their creative agency and they're going to go do their thing. We would rather continue doing the campaign. So we
Yeah.
can solve big problems, but we really like it when we get to be a partner for someone to help grow their business. So most of our clients are mid-market, and essentially our goal is to take challengers and make them champions. So we want to take those players and move them up to the next level.
Mm. Chris Westmeyer, where can we learn more about you and about Digital Strike?
Pretty easy. www.digitalstrike.com. And or if you're interested, we've got a LinkedIn newsletter, a website newsletter, and you can follow me on LinkedIn under Chris Westmeyer. Just search for me. You can connect with me. There's lots of AI. We educate, educate, educate. So if you go through our posts, our newsletter, so much education, no sales, really just education and some fun updates.
I love that. Chris, thank you again for being on the show, and we will
Thank
talk
you
to you
so
next time.
much.
You got it.
Take care.